Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you where you could download the recent version of Blender and how to set up and get everything ready for working with Blender 2.6.8. So to download it, you could go to www.blender.org, click on Download Blender, and then based on if you have Windows, Linux, or Mac, and if you're on a 32 or 64-bit version, you can select the correct Blender. And the Mac one also has the Intel 64, but basically nearly everybody today runs 64, and it tells you here like which operating system you should have. The Windows side also features an installer and just an archive. The big difference is when you download this one, basically you start an installer or setup that places the software for you inside your applications folder in Windows, and with this one it downloads an archive which you can unpack, and then inside the folder you have already the Blender executable, and you can place this folder wherever you want, which is pretty much the same like in OS X. When you download this one, you just get a disk image, you open the disk image, and then you have a file or like the Blender archive which you can drag to, for example, applications folder. Okay, let's assume you have everything downloaded. Let's go to Blender 2.6.8. That's the way how it looks like. So now we would like to do some setups so we are ready for a working environment that is usable for industrial design. First, you go to File, User Preferences. Then under Editing, you want this one to be 65, so I click and then hold my mouse button and drag my mouse. In Interface, maybe you would like to turn on Zoom to Mouse Position. What this one basically means is wherever my mouse cursor is, I zoom to. So it's kind of like always the center. It's actually quite usable. Then in Input, you would like to turn on Continuous Grab. This basically means when I scale something and I move my mouse to a screen border, you see that my mouse will come on the other side. So that's kind of like a very, very nice feature when you have to scale a lot, and sometimes when your mouse maybe hits the edge of the screen, then you can't continue that command. And with continuous grab, you can do that. You would like to have select with left turned on, so that means with my left mouse button, I click, and with my right mouse button, I place my 3D cursor. If you are on a laptop that does not have the keypad or the numpad, you would like to have emulate numpads. So then this way your 1, 2, 3 till 0 above your letters are actually used for the different views and are not used for the different layers. In File, you can turn on Compress File. That makes your files when you save a little bit smaller. And in System, you would like anisotropic filter at 16. VBOs you want to turn on. Multi-sample to 16. And region overlap. So what region overlap basically means is, you can see it. So you see, for example, my toolbar on the left and my property panel on the right. And when I press N and T, they just open, and they're kind of like an overlay. If I do not have this one turned on, you can see when I show them, they're opaque, and they're actually changing the scale of my 3D view. And that's, in my opinion, highly annoying. So you just want this one to be turned on. And also, the other options are for textual presentation, and for example, the multi-sample. You can see, for example, right now, this is now very jaggy. so it actually smoothes out your 3D view, the way how you see the wire mesh a little bit. So now you see the edges are a little bit softer. It's nicer on your eyes. And maybe the last thing you would like to change is when you go to themes, you could go to 3D view, scroll down, and for example, turn on use gradient. See, when I turn on use gradient, I have like a background gradient, I have a low color, and I also have like a high color. So I can basically give myself kind of like a nice gradient in the background, so it's not monochromatic. It looks a little bit more interesting. If everything then is set up to your liking, you can click Save User Settings, close this one, this light and the camera. You can delete, press X, delete. Down here we have our timeline view. This one we don't really need, so I click on this icon, lower left corner, hold my mouse button, move my mouse down, release my mouse button, and just minimize that view. Now, because we work for industrial design, we want to all the time also work in correct measurements. So we go to the world, go to units, and then based on if you work with metric or imperial, you can set those. And when everything is correct, maybe here I want to have my 3D cursor always at the center, I press the period point on my numpad so it centers my view. And then I can go to File and say Save Startup File. And once you click that, every time when you create a new file or when you load a file or start Blender, this basically setup will be loaded. So keep that in mind that Save Startup File is not only about saving like software preferences, but it also saves the view layout, like how you slice your interface, and it also saves like what geometry you have inside there. So when I create a new file, see when I move this one maybe to there and say Save Startup, let me delete those, and I'll go to New, Reload Startup File, and you see there's that cube which I baked into the file. So basically, to memorize this, the way how the preference works, it's saving a template file, and every time when you start Blender, it's loading that template file. Yeah, and that's basically everything you need to know at the moment for downloading the new version of Blender and how to set it up.